about cannabis and hemp tonight, and it's a subject that is very fresh in many people's mind given the recent passage of the Farm Bill in December. Mitch McConnell was pretty heavy on getting that passed through, being from Kentucky and a high-growing hemp state. So it's passed at the tune of $867 billion. So hemp is here, it's here to stay, and I would like to kind of help distinguish some of the myths between cannabis and hemp. And hopefully I've prepared a slideshow for you, and if you have any questions, I am a really chill person. I like to get interrupted and distracted, so I'll try to root myself back. But anyway, thanks for coming, and hope you take home some messages from this. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what my work is at Integr8 Health, and then the endocannabinoid system. I think it's really interesting. I think we're going to need to learn a lot more about it as it unfolds. There are, so I'm going to talk about that. Of course, marijuana versus hemp, and some of the active constituents. That's a fancy name for THC, CBD, and things like that. And then some of the delivery systems and dosing, and go from there. So I work at Integr8 Health. It was founded in Falmouth. It was founded in 2010. I was hired in 2011, and I work part-time. Dustin Sulak is a physician that is internationally acclaimed for his work and research and education and promotion of cannabis. And Brad Foyer is their brother-in-laws. He is the CEO. At Integr8, we provide medical certifications for qualifying patients with a favorable risk-benefit ratio. We try to make individual plans for their treatment with cannabis to help their condition. And each program or each plan that we develop is very specific to that individual, although there are a lot of varying factors. And then we also have some therapists and practitioners who offer osteopathic and naturopathic treatments. We have Reiki practitioners come volunteer twice a week. For an afternoon, they come and provide Reiki for 4 hours. And then we have K-laser, which is a way of diminishing inflammation in the body using a laser. Okay, so, oops, I skipped one, didn't I? Let me go back. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the endocannabinoid system is a regulatory system that we're actually born with that is dedicated to maintaining balance, homeostasis, and it's all throughout the body. The receptors are endogenous cannabinoids where they were discovered in the 1990s while they were trying to understand why THC made people high. And they were trying to figure out what is it that creates this in the body that people respond this way. And so that was when the endocannabinoid system was developed. So, oh, did I? Thank you. I'm sorry, I'll learn this. Okay, so it's an integral part of our ability to respond to illness and injury. The system is how we learn, it's how we grow, and our bodies produce their own endocannabinoids via the action of these receptors, Cb1 and Cb2. And they all modulate different aspects of our health: appetite, inflammation, mood, pain, stress, how we respond to it, memory, sleep, and metabolism. I'll get this down. So the Cb1 receptor is primarily expressed in the lungs, in the liver, and the kidneys, but primarily in the central nervous system. And what they do is they control different functions in the brain, in particular learning, memory, motor behavior, appetite, temperature, also inflammation and mood regulation. And so in the hippocampus, which is in the center of the brain, that's where most of the memory occurs, and it also affects the amygdala, which is where emotion is centered. So the CB1 signaling dampens down the amygdala when and activates the prefrontal cortex, which diminishes the symptoms of anxiety, and especially when you're under stress. So when you're under stress, it dampens down the amygdala, and that's when you become anxious. So this is a way to kind of enhance the performance of this so that you do continue to feel well and joy. By that, it diminishes some of the emotional issues of depression, and PTSD. Also helps with insomnia, and again, inflammation and blood pressure. The Cb2 receptor is primarily focused on the immune system, and it's found in white cells of the bone marrow and in the tonsils, and primarily in the spleen. And it plays a huge role in inflammation and pain relief. So they're active, the endogenous compounds, meaning these are compounds that are made within you. We make anandamide, and it binds the cannabinoid receptors that are throughout our bodies. It's kind of interesting. The name anandamide is taken from the Sanskrit word, which means ananda, which means joy, bliss, delight. So this is in our bodies. This is all about finding our passion. And it's all triggered by these cannabinoids. So the anandamide dampens down pain receptors. Under psychological stress, the anandamide levels fall in the amygdala, as I mentioned earlier, and so it increases cortisol and increases anxiety. So it plays a role in the sleep, pain management, hunger, motivation, pleasure, and the beneficial effects of exercise. So when you think about a long bike ride that you took on the snow with a fat tire, and you get home and it was 10 degrees outside, and you're like, I feel so good. We used to call them the endorphins, but they're actually endocannabinoids. This is our gift. This is great. So there are 2 drugs that have been approved by the FDA that contain the psychoactive constituent THC. And this was developed by GW Pharmaceuticals in the United Kingdom. In 2010, they developed Sativex, which was the first drug that had both THC and CBD. And it was given primarily for managing neuropathic pain, spasticity, overactive bladder, and multiple sclerosis. So those were the specific indications, although it had a lot more wide-ranging effort, but this was the indication. Hey, bro, how you doing? Nice to see you. Hi, Liv. Thanks for coming. The old location. I get it. The second is Epidiolex, which was recently approved in June 2018. And this was specifically contains just CBD. There's no THC in there, but it's made tremendous effect on diminishing these rare types of seizures in kids, Davit syndrome, and it's been revolutionary in treating these rare conditions. So these are the active constituents. THC, which is tetrahydrocannabidiol, is primarily the psychoactive constituent of cannabis, and this is the constituent that has been created the Schedule 1, which means that it's very dangerous and could be lethal. And that's why the FDA has chosen to keep it on Schedule 1. The reason that became Schedule 1 is completely a political reason, and I'm not going to get into the specifics about it, but because as we know, it doesn't cause death. And this is a substance that people really like. So I think we're going to see a lot more different forms of this being mainstream. The CBD is cannabidiol, and this is the one that's getting a lot of hype these days with the advent of the Farm Bill. And CBD has been really instrumental in eliminating a lot of people's chronic pain. It helps with inflammation, it helps with their mood, and so this is very revolutionary for people who have really failed traditional treatments. They work synergistically together, and so we're going to get a little more into how they work in a bit. There are other active constituents, CBG, THCV, CBC. We're still discovering those active components and determining more specifically how they work, but there have been about 130 different constituents that have been identified in the cannabis plant. It's pretty amazing. So terpenes are in all plants. They give it their color, their aroma, their taste. And even terpenes help attract pollinators and detract or ward off, repel predators. And it kind of gives each plant its unique character. I think they're really neat. There's probably, there are 8 cannabinoid or terpenes in the cannabis plant that give it its color, texture, flavor, and makes it each one more unique. And they have also physiologic effects, such as affecting mood, focus, acuity, pain relief. So it's the acidic cannabinoid is raw form. They call them the acids. And the activated or neutral cannabinoids have been heated to over 200 degrees. So we're learning a lot more now about the CBDA and the THCA, which is the acid. And so there's lots of other acidic forms in plants, but it's not until it gets heated to about 200, sometimes it's deeper or higher than 200, or if it's over time, it could change from a CBDA and a THCA to CBD and THC. So the THC has the psychoactive components, but the THCA does not. So it's not until you heat it, till you smoke it, till you burn it, till you cook it, till you bake it, and whatever activates the THC. So we're finding at Integr8 using THCA for treating primarily children with epilepsy. They're getting great results. It also has neuroprotective properties and has no psychoactive components. The CBDA is also working on inflammation, antibiotics, as well as analgesia. So these are the 2 cultivars, the strains. Whoops, I'm sorry. Previous, right? Yeah, here we go. So you can see the sativa plant is sort of like a big fan shape, as well as the indica, but the sativas can grow 20 feet tall, and they're kind of loose and leggy. They have narrow leaves, but they typically have a higher concentration of CBD. And the indica plants are shorter, bushier, have higher THC. And there's actually, this is the indica, it's a little hard to tell, and that's the sativa. And this is just, this is one that has been kind of a weed that's been growing for years in Africa. It's not made its way back to, it's called rhodiola, and it hasn't made its way to the United States. So reasons that people might want to use cannabis is for nausea. It treats anorexia, it treats people who are taking chemotherapy. It really improves their appetite. It also helps people with asthma. It's a bronchodilator, so they're able to breathe more easily. I typically don't recommend smoking it, but if you inhale it with a vaporizer, it actually lets you breathe better. It helps diminish stress from trauma and anxiety, fear. It improves sleep. When you take it at bedtime, you wake up in the morning and you have no rebound, no hangover, you get on with your day. It's really effective for that. It helps manage your pain, it reduces inflammation, and it changes people's relationship with their pain. So if they've got chronic knee pain and every time they get up they feel it, it just, when you get up, it's not part of your psyche at the time. It just kind of changes how you perceive your pain. It's certainly not going to improve the condition of it, but it improves how you respond to it. It's very effective in cutting down some of the spasms that people experience with restless leg or even multiple sclerosis. And it's finding new ways into treating people with Alzheimer's. What I've found is the elderly who are perseverating a lot, they can't slow down. They're just managing this and managing that and keeping them from sleeping. What it does is it actually binds where those amyloid clusters are, and it actually prohibits the progression of it. So that's pretty exciting. So there's several ways to use it. You could certainly smoke a doobie. That's one way. Flowers or hemp papers, or however you like to do it. You get the effects right away, and it burns going down, and that's undesirable. But it tends to be something that's passed around with friendships. We tend to recommend more of a medicinal aspect to cannabis, so that's not what I recommend in my practice. You can use a vaporizer, and that's actually a device that has a bit of an oven. So you put dry ground flour in the oven, you set it to a temperature, and you inhale as the vaporizer heats the oil in the plant up to a vapor, and that's what you inhale. So you're not smoking it. It can be a little uncomfortable, but you can manage that with how fast you use it and the quantity. The vape pens have been really popular. It looks like a pen. It's typically about 6-7 inches long. It has a cartridge on the top that allows the delivery of the cannabis oil with the battery at the bottom that's rechargeable. It's really nice when you have an immediate need for some pain management, or you feel an anxiety attack coming on, or you are, really in a crisis situation. You can take a puff from this, and it's very discreet. It doesn't have any smell, and and you get some immediate results. So it kind of eases the burden of that event. Tinctures is typically what I recommend. There are drops that you put under your tongue. I usually say keep it there until you need to swallow. So the longer it's there, the more effective it gets through the mucous membranes of your mouth. But ingesting, you would swallow it. It does do a first pass through the liver. The tinctures they need to be measured. You need to have them tested to make sure you know the quantity, because that can vary. There's not a standardized dose. So tinctures have little graduated lines that can tell you the number, how much a milliliter is in each one. And that will, if you know the number of milligrams per milliliter, you can dose yourself fairly carefully with that. So that's I think dosing is really important. There are several transdermal delivery systems. I think the newest one that I've seen is a transdermal patch that you put on, and it works for about 12 hours, and my patients find it amazing. It has no psychoactive effect. It gets them through their workday and really allows their pain to diminish. There's also a salve, a topical cream that you can put on to localized areas of pain, and a suppository. I had a gentleman in the other day who was 51 and unfortunately was diagnosed with rectal cancer, and everything about him feels fine, but he's just terrified about his surgery that's coming up in 2 weeks. So I suggested a suppository with a specific combination of CBD and THC that he would insert rectally at bedtime. And it can act very locally on this polyp that he has that's gone awry. So there are also edibles, brownies, things that kind of make dosing very difficult. So I'm not a big fan of that. I think it's important to know what you're getting and know what you're taking. So it can be pretty erratic. It often is something that people take at bedtime because there again, it helps them sleep through the night. You have no ambient hangover. It's pretty effective. And then last are the concentrates. I'm not a big fan of those. They tend to be pretty strong, and they can be taken orally, just a little pinch between your cheek and gum, and go for it. But then again, I think that you can get a little unwieldy with that. So the rule of thumb that I recommend: go slow. Start low. You don't need a lot. Adjust it slowly. So maybe every 2 or 3 days, adjust it up or down if you need to. And don't be afraid to try it. Go all the way. Some people really find that the higher dose that they have, it's managing their pain or their cancer or their PTSD in a way that is better than the pharmaceuticals that they've tried in the past. So they have a broad spectrum, a broad, safe, and effective dosing range, and it's a broad range, and we'll see a little bit later. And everybody responds differently. What the little old man with a crutch and 95 pounds would take would maybe 4 times bigger than the person who weighs 300. It just is all over, and it has to do with our endocannabinoid system, how receptive to these cannabinoids we are. So this is just an example I thought I'd give you since we're talking about dosing. I think that this is for a naive patient with chronic pain. And since 3/4 of the patients that we see at Integr8 for pain management or for cannabis certification have pain. So what I would suggest is starting with a 1-to-1 ratio, and that can be changed. You can recommend a tincture, and you can have 1 bottle with THC and 1 with CBD, or you can have it blended, whatever your caregiver or dispensary can provide for you. And I suggest starting low, 1 to 2 milligrams of each, and then every 2 or 3 days, bump it up just a bit. And I find that the average dose is about 10 milligrams, and that would be 5 of CBD and 5 of THC. And that's a pretty low dose. I have, some people who have cancer are doing, 200 milligrams, so the range is broad. So we know THC can impair your memory function and kind of distract you a bit, but at very low doses, it actually helps people stay focused more. It can make you anxious, paranoid if you use too much, but it also treats anxiety at low doses. It can cause a dry mouth, increased appetite, blurry eyes, dizziness, distortion of time. You may be, thinking that you've been sitting there for hours and it's only 10 minutes has gone by. So the thing about it is, again, dosing. So we'll talk a little about marijuana versus hemp. They're both species of the Cannabis Sativa family. Hemp is cannabis, so it's a little challenging to make sure that to know the difference. So you can always, read the label, find out if it's made from hemp, and that's the Cannabis Sativa, as well as, in cannabis. We usually refer to marijuana as cannabis. So there are 2 cannabis plants, a family of plants with 2 classifications, the indica and the sativa. And typically they have the broad leaves and the dense buds, kind of more of a bushy appearance. And the hemp grows a lot taller and has leaves that are concentrated at the top. And it grows, taller and skinnier than most of the medical varieties. And I have a little picture here. So you can see the marijuana plants are a little lower and the sativa on the left are a lot higher. So hemp, in 2015, the Industrial Hemp Farming Act allowed for the cultivation of hemp for research purposes. So it all had to be fairly controlled and tested to make sure that it hadn't been cross-pollinated with any marijuana to increase the THC in it. So we used to use hemp prior to that for making ropes on ships and ropes in your house and making paper, clothing, building materials, fuel products, hemp seeds, making oils. Has a whole lot of properties. And we're just now kind of exploring the opportunities for this this plant that is becoming a commodity. Well, more recently, the CBD has kind of hit the market, and it's kind of generated a lot of interest, and it's definitely worth exploring. So CBD can be used topically, orally, or it can be inhaled. It has a very antioxidant, a pro-cognitive. It kind of helps bring you present and allow you to be here rather than checking out with, such as you would expect with a high THC. It helps, it binds with the same receptors as THC, so when you take both together, it actually dampers down the psychoactivity of it. So the higher CBD content in your medicine, the less psychoactivity there's going to be. CBD is used for anxiety, seizures, multiple sclerosis, schizophrenia, and depending on the dose, you may even need as much as 1,000 milligrams a day. That would be pretty expensive, but I had a woman who was from Russia and she had bone on her knee, and she was told to get some cannabis, and she went to she had tried a couple of the local ones and didn't find anything helpful. She went up to Morning Glory and got 2,500 milligrams in a little half-ounce bottle, spent $150 for it, and she felt great. She came in the next day for certifications like, I need that stuff. I'm like, let's take it a little slower. So, yeah. So, it's a big business. $646 million industry at this point. It's going to increase. It's going to triple. Because with the Farm Bill, there's more and more acres that are going to be planted, and there's going to be a surplus. It's going to be a huge commodity. And the farmers are thrilled because the tariffs have really put a burden on them. So many of them are switching over. CBD has very minimal psychoactivity, even at high doses. Like I said earlier, there are over 130 cannabinoids. I mean, we just talked about 2 of them. So there's a tremendous amount of research that needs to happen to explore how else this plant can be discovered. So CBD is sold in states regardless of the laws, and certainly online. And some products have isolates from the whole plant, so they contain only a fraction of the healing properties found in cannabis. So that's sort of one of the downsides of CBD. But we think that the THC actually enhances the effect of it for minimizing inflammation and helping with mood and things like that. So let's see here. Oops, what did I press? Menu? Okay, let's go back here. So, so it was made illegal. It's a little confusing, and I don't quite understand the whole thing, but in 1937, under the Marijuana Tax Act, this has to do with a completely political agenda. At that point, DuPont had just discovered nylon, and they were, hemp was in direct competition, so they threw money at the representatives in Congress and slapped the hemp onto the Controlled Substances Act, or Marijuana Tax Act. And so in 1970, under the Nixon administration, it gave its Schedule 1 to claim it particularly dangerous and lethal. So the Farm Bill that was passed this recent December legalized hemp as long as it contains less than 0.3% THC. And there's no restriction on the sale, transport, or possession of hemp-derived products. So this is, it still needs to be regulated, so it's not like you can go up and buy a bunch of hemp seeds and plant your garden. They want to know where it's, they want to understand that you need a license to grow it, and they regulate the amount that you're growing. And so it's controlled by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, unless each state is driving it. So if the states have their own hemp laws, then the USDA does not give you their laws. It's much like the ACA, for Maine, or for states that have their own Affordable Care Act, like in Maine we have the Maine Community Health Option, so the government isn't controlling how we manage our health care. And the same with occupational safety and health. So there's still a lot of research that needs to be done, as we know. And I think the important thing is that the plant maintain its integrity as much as it can and not get diluted and crossbred and hybridized so much. I think that we realize that it's important to maintain the diversity and potential for this to provide a good income for farmers when they send their crops to market to make fabric and clothing and oils and things like that. But it's not regulated at this point. It will be pretty soon, but it still has a Schedule 1 status. 33 states in the country have legalized medical cannabis, and 10 have legalized adult use. Some people call it recreational. We like to call it adult because it's you need to be over 21 to acquire it. And under the Farm Bill, there were more CBD products, but not all CBD products are legal because they may have more than 0.3% THC. So high levels of mislabeling and contamination have been shown up in some of the hemp products. That was identified on some peer review articles that I checked out. The therapeutic effects require high doses, so it can get pretty expensive. THC actually enhances the effect of CBD, so you don't need as much. The typical price is between 10 and 30 cents per milligram. So if you're doing 1,000 milligrams, you're out a lot of money. But the usual dose I find is about 20. Some people take more. I met this guy that was walking the straight line who was doing 1,000 every day. So it varies. So I thought I'd show you some of the products that are carried here at this, at Coastal Pharmacy and Wellness. They did not ask me to do this, but I felt like you need to know that these are on the shelf. They're brand new in, and I think that I'm sure that the pharmacists would be really interested to know how you find them. So this one here has soft gels and capsules. It's in a CBD oil. Is that focused for you guys? Does that look focused? Okay, it looks blurry to me. Yeah. Okay, so I can't even read that. So it must be my eyes or something. Okay, so the soft gels have 15 milligrams of CBD per serving, and the capsules have 10, and then they have different strengths. There's a 15 and I think 3 other doses of the soft gels. Then there's also some tinctures, some oral mucosal deliveries. They have a couple different strengths. One has, it comes in 1 ounce bottles, about 250 is that, milligrams of CBD. And then there's the 2 ounce bottle with 720. That's in the total bottle. That's not per dose. This is completely hemp, and they call it, what's that term? I'm sorry. Oh, I know what it is. I was trying to think. It's what they call full spectrum, and that is a term that includes the terpenes in there, because terpenes do provide a lot of benefit with inflammation and pain and memory and mood, and like we talked about. So this is a topical cannabis balm or a salve, and you can apply it directly to the areas of discomfort that you have on your body. Yeah, and there's, I can't read how many. Okay, so they have an extra strength with 100 milligrams of CBD per container. And then there's the original has 50 milligrams. Plus it has some CBDA in there, which is the raw form, which has more healing support as well. This is a mouth spray. So 1 little puff into your mouth can provide you with some CBD oil, and they have an extra strength spray. And then the last product they're carrying, whoops, is that it? I thought there was okay. So a couple things that I wanted to wrap up and certainly open it up to all of your questions. It's safe. Medical cannabis is effective for treating a lot of different conditions that people have, where people have tried other methods of pain management or mood management. So the difference between the medical cannabis and hemp is the THC, which is the psychoactive or impairing cannabinoid. Hemp CBD is effective for pain, mood, but it doesn't have the entourage effect that marijuana has, because the THC, like I said, gives it more of a synergistic boost. And the industry is not very well regulated at this point. It will change with the advent of the law change, but still it's not. States have to catch up. In order to acquire cannabis, you need to have a certification. And, what I was looking at is certification. Okay, so the certificate of analysis is a sheet that tells you a lot about what the testing, the quantities, the control studies are all showing, gives you more information about it to make sure that what you're getting is what is on the label. And you certainly don't want to include the pesticides, heavy metals, or any of the solvents in there. So the endocannabinoid system is all over, ubiquitous, our bodies. It promotes balance and healing, wellness. It's a great target for promoting health and treating disease. Certification is necessary to acquire THC, and you can get it from a dispensary, a caregiver, or a caregiver storefront. So caregiver, they're all registered with the state to provide cannabis for you. The storefronts are popping up everywhere. I don't know if anyone's been to Gas and Grass on Warren Avenue, but it is booming. There's a line out the road. The dispensary is in Portland, is up on Congress Street, and it has a robust business. I'll recommend people go to a dispensary if they want to learn about the product, see what variations of the theme there are. They have a lot of different delivery systems, a lot of different flavors to ingest, and they have a lot of different strengths. So their menu is a lot larger than what you would find at a caregiver's storefront. But on the other hand, caregivers give you a one-on-one relationship. So if you feel the need to, know specifically, say, I tried this for my nausea, and it just gave me made me too drowsy. The caregiver can create a product that can help you, ward off those side effects. So you don't have. So they can completely formulate a product for your specific condition. So as of December 13th, when the laws that were approved in September, 90 days after that was December 13th, that is when several of the cannabis laws changed. In particular, there was a lot of them about how the caregiver managed the seed to sale, which doesn't really include us, but one of the things that they found was that there are cannabis growers, and there are cannabis bakers, and there are cannabis processors, and the same person couldn't do it all. And prior to this time, they could only acquire it from one place. And there's a limit on the amount that you can acquire at a time and per month. But now they realize that, that Jerry might make a good tincture, but, Freddie's got the best sleep potion for me. So you can acquire it from anywhere you want. You want to know that it's been tested. You want to become familiar with the dosing. I tend to really favor low dose. Less is more. You don't need a lot. You don't need the psychoactive effect to get that pain management or that mood management. And let's see, so you want to know that it's tested. You want to know what % of THC and CBD is in it. You want to know if there's any pesticides or solvents in there. And there are a couple labs in Maine that offer that. At Integr8, you can drop off a sample and send it off and get an email back with your results of what your medicine has. So at Integr8, we provide cannabis certifications. They are the patients are seen at least once a year. We like to see them sooner because we're dedicated to their success in pain management or mood or whatever they're certified for, what their chronic health condition is. And I think that as we move forward, looking into exploring more of the acidics, the raw cannabis, even though you may need a higher dose. I've had patients tell me that even dropping a bud into some hot water and just sipping on that can actually shave the edge off of their anxiety. So that's the THCA. It hasn't quite reached that 200-degree mark and is effective. Some people like to put a pinch between their cheek and gum, whatever rocks your boat. And I think that you just find your groove. So that's my slide presentation. I'd really like to open it up to what questions in particular you have, and hopefully I'll have some answers. Yeah, so Sjogren's is an autoimmune condition, and typically when you have Sjogren's, you have other autoimmune conditions as well. Sjogren's causes dry eyes and dry mouth. So clearly you don't want a lot of THC because that dries your eyes and dries your mouth. So you would focus more on a CBD tincture and go with, start with a low dose, maybe 2 or 3 milligrams, and kind of slowly bump up from there. You're right. So the question was, does a patient have to have pain for longer than 6 months prior to being certified to use medical cannabis? And the answer is no, because there's no requirement about which criteria you have, which condition you have for certification. That's now between the provider and the patient. at Integr8 Health. There are other places that provide it, but I have a little bias there. We provide a little more education, a little more conservative therapies. Yeah. So what I hear you asking is, can you get all the effects of cannabis for your arthritis without getting high? Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So you're not interested in the psychoactive effect?
Nope.
Okay. So number one is cannabis is not addictive. Nobody's ever died from it. You may get too much, but okay, go to the couch, put in a funny movie, and don't take as much next time. I mean, it's pretty easy, and the dosing is all over the place. So I can't tell you specifically what I would recommend, but I can tell you in general, I would go with a CBD dominant strain to have a little bit of THC to give it that boost. And as I said, the CBD receptors compete for THC, so it's not going to, the more CBD you have, the less psychoactivity you're going to have. But if there's some THC in there, it has more of an entourage effect. This woman was asking about when you use a tea with cannabis in there, taking some fats with it, as well as the
From
second.
the hemp flower.
Oh, from the hemp. Okay, yeah. And the second was.
Just how much am I getting out of boiling it for 5 minutes or less with fat? Am I getting more?
Okay.
The longer I boil it,
Oh, does it extract more?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
In that process of making tea with milk, you do fat.
Yep, you put some milk in it. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so cannabis, hemp, and marijuana is fat soluble. So if you take a cannabis with some fats, if you have some nuts or cheese or milk or something with it that actually stays in the system a lot longer, it doesn't run through you quite as quickly, and it's stored there longer. So you get, with the tinctures, you get a therapeutic value for 4 or 5 hours, whereas if you were to inhale it, you would only get 2 or 3 hours. So if you put it in boiling water, water boils at 312 or 212, and maybe enough to decarboxylate the cannabinoids. The longer it steeps, the more potent it becomes, and it can, you can. I can't tell you specifically how many milligrams you're going to get, but the rule of thumb is the longer it's in there, the stronger it becomes. So the question was, does it interfere with other medications? And it has a completely different way of absorption. It doesn't, the edibles do a first pass through the liver, but most of the topicals and the inhalation is, it does not. So it doesn't compete with receptor sites. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah. So the answer is that it doesn't. I mean, there are some medications that I caution. In particular, if somebody is on a blood thinner, I would give them some pause. I would say really keep the THC down. THC can also cause some liver fibrosis, so we often recommend a more CBD dominant strain for people who've got fatty livers or had hepatitis, things like that. The question was, how do you know who to choose for a caregiver, right? That's what you want. You want to make sure that you have somebody that's reputable. And first of all, the caregivers can be, their grow operation can be visited by the state to, determine that your...
Caregiver is always a grower?
Yes, or caregivers are growers, typically. I mean, yes, the caregivers are the growers. They're the farmers. Caregivers, many of them make products, many of them extract products, so there are lots of different kinds of caregivers. There are over 3,000 caregivers in the state of Maine. There are 8 dispensaries, and last count there were like 60 storefronts. Tomorrow it's going to be 70. I mean, it's just rapidly becoming accepted, that it's here to stay. It's not going away. People are getting results with this at very low doses. And it's not impairing them during their driving if you keep the dose down, and that's the key. So I think the answer is you want to know if you have to interview them and try some of their product before you sign on with them. Prior to November, you had to choose a caregiver and stick with that person, but now you can go anywhere. And if you try their product and it's not giving you the results you're looking for, you don't have to stick with them. What also I recommend is asking them for how it tests out. How many milligrams of CBD and THC is in here? And they should give you that information. They should be having their grow tested for purity and quantity and quality. I think that we all need to be talking about it with the checkout clerk or the cop on the street or whatever, because we have to normalize it, because people are finding amazing results with it at very low doses. And I think that the more familiar and the more you understand about it, the less fear and trepidation there'll be around it. I mean, whether you choose to use it therapeutically for your mood or for a particular condition is very personal. But I think that the more understanding we have about the healing properties and have reverence for it, the better that it's going to give a rap to the other people who could stand to understand it. So the question was about testing the product, and if you get one and you don't know what's in it, do you need to have it tested? And this could be one off the shelf. Is that what you're asking? I would definitely trust where I'm shopping. If I shop at Coastal Pharmacy and see a little tub of CBD on the shelf, I would trust to put it on my elbow or my knee. Yeah. If I saw a hand, well, actually, I should be honest, I've had some topical salves presented to me from my patients. Gifts, I guess. I don't solicit them. And I've passed them on to family members who have had some good results with that. And that's not tested. There's little indications about how much lavender and comfrey and other constituents are in there. But I think if it's, you have to sort of trust the provider. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the question is about testing and how do you know what you're getting? You want to know what solvents and what pesticides and what toxins are in there. So there are 2 labs that I know of in Maine, and these are not the people who go to the grow rooms to do the testing of the products, but these labs have samples sent to them, and most of the caregivers do. There's one in Kennebunk called Tested, and there's a ProVerde. So the grow rooms are critical. I mean, they need to have the right climate to prevent the mold and the spores and the bud rot and all the, and if you get a little hint of white flies or aphids or something, it could reap through your whole grow in a day. I mean, people have to check their plants regularly to make sure that it's not going to, something isn't contaminating it. So, if you see something on your grow that may compromise the rest of it, you remove the plant. Well, maybe it's not so easy. It's got it on 6 or 7 and they're 8 feet tall and, it's dark and cold outside and I'm just going to spray something on there and put a little 7 on it or whoever, safer or whatever. And that's going to show up in the testing. So that's why testing is important. That's a good question. The answer is with 0.3%, you still could test positive, but you have to have a lot of it. I mean, if you're using it therapeutically at low doses, the likelihood of it being testing positive is very, very minimal. Yeah. I'm not saying it's zero, because it isn't, but I think the body clears it a lot faster than if it were in higher quantities. Well, that's the beauty, that's the art of cannabis, and that's my part. That's what I help you figure out. I listen to what is it that you're looking for? Where do you want to be? How do you want to feel when you wake up tomorrow? What's your mood? What's your energy level? What do you have on your plate? What is it? And how are you feeling compromised by this chronic condition? What is it that's really bothering you, that's keeping you from being the best you can be? And so if it's, if your goal is to get through the day without using your cane, or if your goal is to, get through the workday without breaking down because you've got trauma or you've had trauma, then we come up with a plan. I know pretty much which is going to give you more of helps with your mood, your nausea, your non-physical stuff, as well as the physical, the pain, the inflammation, the burning, or whatever you're having. And so we come up with a plan. Yeah, I'm a nurse practitioner. I work with other NPs and doctors, and prior to December 13th, we were requesting records from everybody just to confirm that they've had their pain longer than 6 months, or to confirm that they have multiple sclerosis. And we just wanted that documentation. But now that they've relaxed the criteria for certification, it's not quite as important. For example, anxiety or insomnia or Tourette's, or these were not qualifying conditions before. And now I'm getting bombarded with people who are anxious, who find cannabis really helps calm them down. And I say, it can make you anxious if you use too much, but it can calm it down. It just allows you to be more peaceful, more relaxed, more focused. The question was about testing and whether it's mandated. At this point, it's not. We just don't have the equipment to test it. I don't know what New Hampshire or what Massachusetts and Colorado are doing, but I think that we're going to get there. And the more the public requests the testing, how much is in it, what's in it, has it been sprayed, has it been grown in mercury, that's what we want to know. So the question is, how does cannabis diminish the symptoms of what it does is it works in the brain chemistry, in the amygdala, and that's where your emotions center is, as well as in the hippocampus, which is mostly memory. And the schizophrenia, it actually decreases the sensory neurons in the brain to diminish the psychoaffective disorder with schizophrenia. It works primarily in the brain tissue. So the question was, can you develop a tolerance? And you can. The answer is yes. And so what we recommend, if you find yourself, trying to stay at the low dose, but you're just not getting the results you're looking for, you may bump it up a bit, and then you think, oh, I'll bump it up again and again, and then you realize that you're really investing in this medicine that is causing you this, it's too expensive or too much, or you're feeling a little drowsy or whatever. So what I suggest is a resensitization. So you would stop it for 48 hours, and it would allow those receptors to become more receptive in the brain. The anandamide is going to recharge and work its magic even after 48 hours. So if you're doing, say you're using your vape pen 4 or 5 times, in a session, and I say, 1, maybe 2, then you stop it for 48 hours. You take 1 dose from your vape pen, you go about your business. 5 minutes later, you'll do a second, and that will take you to where that 5 or 6 took you before. So it's a great way to keep the dosage down. Good question. The question is CBD and Alzheimer's. And as a matter of fact, Wellness Connection printed out a tremendously extensive journal article on Alzheimer's and cannabis. It wasn't specifically about CBD. And I mentioned in one of the slides that it actually helps prevent the development of the tangles in Alzheimer's. But I'm not sure how much of that effect is from CBD or THC. It just hasn't, it's not something that they addressed. So the question was about crossing state lines with specific strains, and I'm going to speak to a part of that about crossing state lines with cannabis. So you need to be certified in your state. You need a state ID to get certified. So you go to Massachusetts, and well, they have a cannabis law there as well. So if you have your certification and you got stopped because you were impaired, you have to respect the laws of the state. And if it's legal in Massachusetts and you have your Maine certification, then they can respect that. But if it's Delaware, I don't know if Delaware is legal or not. That's not one of the states I'm familiar with. They're legal. You have to respect the state where you go with your cannabis. So to answer your question about traveling across state lines with strains, what would work well in Delaware would work well in New Hampshire? Is that your question? Yeah. So the question is using CBD oil for Parkinson's. So that's definitely a possibility. I would recommend a low dose of THC in there because I think that it actually helps diminish the tremors. So keeping the dosage low with THC and having a little more CBD, maybe a 4:1 or 4:8 ratio, keeping the dosage low. So the THC tends to respond to the non-physical things, like the mood, the fatigue, the nausea, the appetite, things like that. And the CBD tends to work on more the physical, so the spasms, the twitches, the pain. So I think a combination. Yeah. So we're good for another few questions. I know you've been sitting a long time, and I'll stick around afterwards to chat with you as well. Yeah.
So since CBD doesn't have a psychoactive effect, how would you know that you've had too much? Because it doesn't tend to make you drowsy.
No, it doesn't.
So how would you know that you've had too much?
You don't. You can't. You can't overdose on it.
I mean, I take the CBD and I feel like at a certain dose, I felt like I wasn't my own personality. I felt very dry,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And once I backed off, I was better.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
You don't want any dryness here. In higher doses. Yeah. Well, CBD can. It can definitely cause anxiety in high doses. Yeah. But I don't know what the dose is that, transitions to too much. I just, everyone's different. Okay. Well, I really appreciate your coming. And, yay!